Well, in my most recent video, I mentioned a little place out off of Route 14 called the Peckerwood Slough. I can't tell you how many folks have contacted me since I put that video out wanting to know what in the world happened. Why'd they blow out the dam on the Peckerwood Slough? There's a lot of good memories out there in the Peckerwood Slough for a lot of folks, and I imagine a lot of different reasons. Yeah, it's kind of a long story, and I can't really start in the middle, so I'm going to rewind it all the way to the beginning and try to tell it to you, well, as quick as I can. Back in the 1960s, there's a bunch of hippies got together out there. They formed them a little camp they called the Friends of Mother Nature. I hate to even say it out loud, but it was a nudist colony. I don't know what in the world those people were thinking, but I reckon they'd like to get together and strip off all their clothes and run around in the woods or something. I don't know. Well, one of their distinguished members happened to be a businessman from a few towns over, and he ran a construction and excavation company. So one summer he brought a bulldozer out there. He threw up a dam all the way across that slough and put a concrete structure in the middle of it with boards you could drop in so you could raise and lower the water. Well, in summertime, they'd put them boards in, back up water, and they'd have them a little swimming hole out there. Well, years went by, and I reckon the idea of running around naked in the forest lost its luster. Folks quit showing up to the nudist colony, and the man that owned the place passed away, and his children all moved away from town. Property just sat there alone for a long time. One day there's a couple young boys. Now, I ain't going to mention no names because I don't know exactly what the statute of limitations are on something like this. A couple of young boys out there snooping around just to see what they could see, come across that levee with that concrete structure and them boards stashed back in the trees. Well, these two boys happened to really like shooting wood ducks and greenhead mallards. When they got two brains together cooking on it, they came up with the idea that when duck season got close, they'd run out there and stick them boards in, see if they could back up a little water, make them a duck hunting hole. Well, about the 1st of October, they run out there and put two boards in that gate. It backed up water for a couple 100 yards, made a pretty little hole. Well, they thought, if a little's good, then a lot's great. So they begun, over the next few weeks, to place more and more boards in that structure till they had it full to the top. Now, that levee was about 8 foot high. So it came a couple of real good rains. By the middle of November, it backed water all the way, probably 2 miles. Now, the problem with that is, about 1.5 miles back, the Peckerwood Slough crosses Route 14. And when it'd come a real heavy rain, it'd put about 6 inches of water over the highway. They'd have to come out there and put barricades up and reroute the traffic. Well, them young boys might not have been real smart, but as soon as duck season was over, they'd run out there and pull them boards out and let the water drain out and let it all dry out real good in the summertime. So for about 20 years, everybody in the area knew that somehow, when duck season rolled around, that Peckerwood Slough was going to fill up with water. And local folks started figuring out that every time it rained real hard, they'd better find a different way to go than Route 14 because it was going to be underwater a little while. Well, I reckon the Department of Transportation had their fill of dealing with the road going underwater every time it got a good heavy rain in the winter. So one summer they got out there snooping around to see what was causing the whole thing. I reckon they come across that levee and that concrete structure and them boards, and they decided they was going to fix it. So they went in there and buried dynamite in that levee all the way across. They lit it off and blew it to smithereens. I died a little bit on the inside when I heard the story that had happened. For about 5 years after that, there's a sign hung in the post office that said, $500 reward for anybody that has any information that leads to the prosecution of the person or persons involved with flooding the Peckerwood Slough every year. Oh, well, I sure miss that place. I sure miss hunting out there. I can tell you this, they never caught them two boys.